want to speak to what she said because I have no idea how she defended him, but whole discussion about friendship and if you are really friends with someone, how do you hold them accountable and even speak publicly about a friend's actions or words or whatever while having that accountability piece.
Be loyal to the characters you think I represent more so than you're just blindly defending me.
Right.
I should have got a phone call first if that were the case.
Right, exactly. And we just want to go back a little bit. We didn't get the proper introduction of who our guest slash person who's going to be speaking on the topic today. JR, maybe you want to give a little background about yourself, JR?
No, I don't want to give a little background about myself. For Rocket School today with somewhat decent background and nothing I say.
And I thought about we didn't give you a proper introduction.
No, the funny thing is, you would think I've given this some consideration for so many reasons, but nah.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm I didn't even ask you, did you want to say a bio? I'm I don't know how we're gonna
but my bio would not reinforce anything I'm about to say.
Some people who is this person? Right. So technically you are you're a friend of the show because you're. Yeah.
I could be a friend of the show.
Yeah, you can be
a friend of Jace. I don't know, whatever.
All right, so I would give the textbook definition, and this definition also came from the University of Michigan website of what is consent. As consent is when someone agrees and gives permission or says yes to sexual activity with other persons. Consent is also freely given, and all people in sexual situation must feel that they are able to say yes or no or stop the sexual activity at any time. It also defines consent as clear and ambiguous agreement expressed outwardly through mutual understanding of words or actions to engage in a particular activity. Consent can be withdrawn by either party at any point. And I feel that's very clear on what.
I was gonna say, legit, can we stop? Can we stop defining what is consent? Because if you understood that you needed to ask your mother before you could go outside when you were a kid, you get the idea of consent. If you knew you couldn't go outside until you finished certain things, you get the idea of this transactional permission to go about doing things you want to do.
Right.
There's not a man on the planet who does not understand the concept of consent. There are a lot of men who play like it, but yeah, you're right. I constantly undervalue.
I wouldn't necessarily
play how stupid other people can be.
Well, and it's just a matter of there's a spectrum of understanding. We're on a continuum of understanding and intellectual processing and thinking. So what I know is what I know.
And
it's not what you know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's not what you know.
There's almost a disingenuous nature that these conversations begin from. It's we're going to create this hypothetical situation in which I somehow would forget all of my social conditioning to know a no is a no, or to know this is not a safe space for you or for me to even be engaging you like that. That people start that conversation with that makes me say that the vast majority of people are already know that
they're just pretending.
Yeah.
So you think it's the matter of people just pretending at this point?
I think people don't know what goes on in the Middle East. That makes sense. People know what consent is.
Yeah, but that's why I said it's kind of one of those things where you want to.
Is it really that? It's not that nuanced.
Well, it seems like it is. It seems like there's different situations that happen. Is people were well, the person shouldn't have did this, the person shouldn't have did that, or
That's
they shouldn't have
put
right. And it's just kind of is that the direction you want to go with the conversation?
I wouldn't do it.
Well, right. So this speaks to what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, as far as
the definition can be crystal clear, and then somehow for each person or each situation, it gets a little blurry, and it's our job to figure out what caused the blurriness.
Well, the question is the onus on the woman at that point, or is it the onus on the man?
That's kind of a blanket question.
The reason why I asked is because, in the case of Aziz Ansari, with the nonverbal, I I usually tend to be like, I tend to go with the woman on this. In this particular case, I couldn't because I don't understand what nonverbal is.
So you got to explain the
So
the
explain the
Yeah.
story. So basically, Aziz Ansari is a comedian, master of none.
Right.
He went out on a date with someone. This was a date,
Mhm.
and they ended up back at his place. At this point, things are going.
He made a move and she said no. Isn't that what happened? And then he backed off and he was like,
Right, he
"Ooh."
backed off, but then it escalated again. Things happened, maybe not to her liking, to her satisfaction.
Mhm.
She left and then proceeded to tell him later on, I felt violated. I gave you
Okay.
nonverbal cues. Well, what's a defined nonverbal cue? When when parts of his body were in you, what
Well, that's
defines
why
that?
that's why I was being kind of remedial. I'm like, let me define what
Because
consent is. So we can,
I think that puts a man in a really awkward position as a woman. Like, okay, you may be all hot and ready to go, and maybe somewhere in the middle it changed, but you have to be very concrete and clear that
Right.
it's what they say, no, stop. But when it's a definite hard no,
I think no is always a hard no. And
you
no,
would
it's always-
unless
would
we
think.
discuss those as sexual boundaries before we engage in intercourse,
Right.
Which
no
most
is an
people don't.
absolute
Right,
boundary.
and you
I'm
would-
out.
right, and
Yeah.
you would think, like, obviously in a relationship where you've been established, like say you've been dating months, years, whatever, yeah, you might understand there might be some playful no's that mean yes.
Yeah.
But on a first date, on a first encounter, and y'all just a one night off, no means no in my mind. But I understand slightly, like, because you didn't have exactly the best experience with this man, that does not give you the right.
Right.
You kind of put yourself in a position where, like, you meant no, he should not have been
Well,
anywhere near your
Yeah,
thigh,
like,
right?
you should have
Yeah,
established
You should
the safe
establish
zone.
that,
and
yes.
continue
Well,
that way.
I thought you said something about there was some non-verbal.
Well, she
cues,
said
too.
that, she said in the letter.
Wasn't giving him she wasn't giving him those kinds of vibes, or something short of that.
Oh.
But
Right, but I mean, keeping in mind, it's like it's
You're
daytime
at
right
my
now.
place.
Right, but
Like,
you're right.
on the couch, like, yeah,
Well,
Yeah. And
Let's talk about that a little bit because I know on that there's that thing where in some countries if you go to someone's house late at night, it's kind of like when you come to their house, the implication is, ma'am, it's about to go down.
well,
And if it's kind of like,
Well,
some
let's
people
keep-
not just
do that.
discussing cultural norms.
Well,
and,
yeah.
connection with whether or not something is socially acceptable, because in certain areas of Africa,
Mhm.
gender mutilation is perfectly acceptable
That's true.
socially, and here we had, I don't want to say we become more civilized than that,
Mhm.
because that seems unnecessarily barbaric of a claim, but we're definitely not in that space to make
Right.
those kinds of to make those kinds of equivocations.
yeah, there have been checks and balances put in place where that doesn't happen.
Well, I mean, like
No.
some people they also agree with that here in America.
Um,
So
I don't know how
But
long those checks and balances are going to still be here, but
Right,
Right.
that's fair.
But so let's go back to what you were just saying about this particular instance. Like, it got blurry. One, you asked who was the onus on, right?
Right.
Okay, so when you were reading the definition of consent, there was something really specific in the definition about a mutual understanding.
yeah.
And at any point, if we're in a situation where we don't have a mutual understanding, then I think the onus is on both people to arrive at that place.
Mhm.
So they were, mixing a little bit, and then she said no.
Yeah.
So he backed off. I would be really interested in the details of how did it get turned back? How did the switch
How did
go
it
back
go back
to
on?
on?
Well,
Because if
I
someone
would
says no
assume-
to me, and then they start giving me different vibes, I'm gonna be like, hey, go hold up, because you actually said no.
yeah.
And so whatever
right.
these vibes are very confusing. So how about we get a mutual understanding right quick? Because I mean, isn't that weird?
I think
think
that
so.
I think that there's a standard difference between rejecting someone's advance
Mhm.
and not or forcing yourself on them, although they're not giving consent. Like, that's not what he seemingly did here. He tried in advance a couple times, it didn't work, and so wash my hands, everybody's done with it. That seems perfectly reasonable to accept in interactions between, can I say genders? Should I say
Yeah.
lovers?
Or people.
I'm looking for
Two
more
adults.
socially acceptable
Two adults,
pronouns, guys.
basically.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. I was like,
No,
Shout
but
out to everybody on the
Right.
non-binary,
Yeah.
all that.
respect.
Respect, right.
No, but
I appreciate that.
I can make an advance, and as soon as you reject that advance, then there is an onus on me to adhere to that rejection.
Exactly. Right.
And also, you probably want to clear up, if you don't want that to happen again, you probably should make a firmer statement in what the space you want to be is.
Yeah. So my rules in life really are like, it is okay to question even the obvious, to make sure, because what's obvious to me may not be obvious to you or to you. And so if I'm getting, you're verbally telling me no, and then body language is something different and vibes are different, I'm gonna be like,
we got to discuss that.
Let's pause real quick. Let's talk about this.
Well, that goes into the nonverbal.
Yeah. So nonverbal communication is very powerful. It's really important. Like as a therapist, I rely on nonverbal communication for a lot of things. And when you're talking to somebody, especially somebody who's being really vulnerable or their emotions are coming out, and sometimes people can express things nonverbally that they're not even aware that they're expressing, and their words can be completely contradictory, and then you have some incongruence there, right? That
needs to be addressed.
Yes, that a professional can help dig into. But if you're on a date, you're not in a therapeutic space.
You're not.
Right.
So my words are saying no, but if I'm doing things that are confusing, I think the onus is on everybody to say.
I think sometimes too, you might do something that might be like.
So here's the thing about, I was gonna say, here's the thing about celebrity conversations is there's not enough context to what actually goes on to interpret it.
Right.
Because my first question would be, unless you're actually making a move this way, what nonverbals could I have been getting from you to think that after making an unsuccessful attempt, I should try this again? Like,
that's what I'm saying. What happened to make him say, okay, game on again? Like, what? I don't even understand that.
I could say.
I think that a lot comes from that social conditioning of means like dudes automatically, and I can't speak for us in general, but there's something about that primal aggression that we believe we need to tap into those times to make her more. I don't know. It's like,
is it a comfort?
It's a challenge.
Is it
still very much a bit of
hunt,
that challenge.
I'm wondering if the camera is catching my face.
Now, personally, I think jail comes with that chase, so you really got to watch that. But
Yeah. I have a statement from one of the possible guests. He was not able to make it today. He's been in prison for sexual assault. He was open about it. We had a conversation, and he just sent in a statement of what consent is to him, even dealing with it legally. And I appreciate him for sending his statement. He said consent is clear and definite yes or no to sex. I think it is important to people to understand consent must be informed, and the other party must be in position to give a clear yes. If she's intoxicated or illegally impaired, she cannot give consent. Anything past no is sexual assault / rape. And this is from somebody who went through the legal system with issues with consent and the clarity of it. So I appreciate you sending your statement in. So it's pretty cut and dry.
It is cut and dry. And the real
that's why I was like, I've never understood these conversations as a whole, where men try to deflect or derail these conversations to make it seem like there are scenarios in which a no could possibly be interpreted some other way. Sure, in the world of lots of nonverbal cues and all sorts of other conditions that would make that true. I can't discount it entirely, but if I hear no, I'm done every time.
And I think the piece, when we start diving into, okay, well, what makes the line or the boundary blurry? Like, there's not one answer, and there's not one reason. I think it's situational, and I think it depends on what's going on with the individuals who are involved as to why,
his situation has some drugs and alcohol in the mix. So
and having
it was
healthy
kind of one of those things. He was young,
having healthy boundaries is hard. A lot of us are walking around in the world with extremely poor boundaries. I mean, extremely.
Yes.
And the other thing that I've learned is that most of us don't know how to communicate well.
Oh man! Yes.
So if you combine the fact that poor boundaries,
why are you laughing?
I'm just saying, if
that was funny for at least two different reasons.
So if we combine the fact that poor boundaries are pervasive, and then there's a lack of ability to even express, I think that's why most situations where the lines or the boundary is blurry really doesn't even have to do with people's understanding of
Okay.
consent.
Right.
I think it has to do with people not controlling like what I want versus what's appropriate. You know what I mean? Like controlling and
Yeah.
understanding and
And
respecting
not to
the
mention
boundaries.
that, I mean, to even take it even further, like dig a little deeper, I mean, sometimes some of us are walking around with trauma, don't even know it.
Facts.
That's
Oh.
real.
You know, so I
And we just
know
out here
there.
emotionally
Processing it in
swiping
ways
Right,
that
tables.
just-
right, because it could literally in a situation turn out to be where maybe it was yes at first, but maybe the way he touched you,
Yep.
Yeah.
maybe the way
back
triggered you
something,
to into
and now
something
it's
else,
like-
and he doesn't understand what's going on,
Yep, and you don't know how to
and you don't know how to
express.
express it. You don't even understand,
I
like
don't understand the totality of what you're experiencing
exactly,
right now. And
exactly.
I mean, I experienced that.
Okay.
And
I heard what you
it was
said.
very interesting. Like the trigger itself was something entirely innocuous, and then I looked up, and all of a sudden she was making an association with that power dynamic that goes on in abuse, and I was like, oh yeah, no, we gotta end this.
Yeah.
And so, I mean,
So I think it is a lot of times less about the confusing nature of consent and more about what's going on with
they
the
can't
people
break that. Yeah,
who are
Right.
involved, and there could be just a
that
multitude
cognitive
of things.
dissonance is crazy.
Yeah, there
Oh,
could
yeah.
be a multitude of things that are going on with the people who are involved in the situation.
Okay. I think we have a clear definition of what consent is. We talked about it, and let's move on a little bit. Let's talk about. I sent you like some kind of like talking points, Jared, but we can talk on one of those. You printed off like it's a novel. No, the Me Too movement. Let's just talk about that and how it started. And there was like, I have a website. It's like 30 people on this website.
I would imagine it'd be longer
Yeah,
than that.
it's pretty long of just people, of powerful men, and just what happened in their situation since October 2017. And I thought it was longer than that when I looked it up. I was like, oh, it's only been about a year. But this, and so let's talk about just was there somebody? That's what. Yeah, hey, I searched.
Neither here nor there.
Right.
It's still fairly recent.
Well, yeah. The hashtag is older than that, but the actual like when everything just kind of just boomed.
So you talk about
yeah,
like time,
yeah.
like time's up and all of that, right?
Right. Who would you guys say is like one of the people on the list, or you was just like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe. Like for me, I'm working Freeman, and it's still kind of
I mean, he's like 3,000 years old. You have to. He was around since before the law, so you have to kind of understand how that works.
not around since
Amen.
before the law. What?
No, in all seriousness, age does not absolve you from being trash.
No,
And
gosh, no.
I
Oh my
say
gosh,
that
no,
jokingly,
no.
but no. I can't say I was profoundly surprised at Morgan Freeman. I can say, truthfully, I thought about this for a minute. My first answer was Kevin Spacey, just because of the spectrum of abuse claims,
And it's more that's been coming out.
It's insidious.
Crazy, but the more I thought about it, Mario Batali. And not because he's a chef, but because when he went to apologize, he left the world a recipe for cinnamon rolls after he apologized.
Wait a minute.
I was like,
How tone deaf.
to be that
Whoa.
shameless, to be that tone deaf, to
Not a
just
recipe for
be
cinnamon
that
rolls.
unapologetic about the trauma you caused multiple people, and then keep branding as you're doing it. Like, I was just like, yo.
He about his business.
Like,
But
I mean, is he though?
It's almost. I mean, because he gonna make sure you get this recipe though. Like it's like really, is this the
So
time?
now we're gonna eat cinnamon rolls and think of great people mentality. That's what's going on.
It's like, yeah, that was a very
Somebody.
It wasn't
Somebody
somebody in marketing.
Yeah,
That's not a good
his PR team. Where are they?
They
Like,
let
that's
the
not
man
right.
wear Crocs in like on national television.
Yeah,
They already kind of.
Touche. You know,
They sent
they
them
might
off
have been
already.
sending us hints back then.
It was the Crocs.
The Crocs.
Can't trust it.
Can't trust a man in Crocs. You
No.
really can't.
No.
That makes sense now.
What?
Saying.
Yeah, Christina, Angela, y'all have some people that was shocking to you.
Not necessarily.
I think
Wow.
I
Wow.
No,
can't say I I was particularly shocked by any of the accusations. Some of the responses definitely, and I mean, even that is, we see it every day in our own communities. We see it every day in people we know, just people who are unapologetic in their mess, and how much, regardless of how much trauma that causes people outside of them, they don't care. So,
and I think it could be too, I'm a little desensitized to things like that just because of my line of work, and I work with a lot of victims of trauma, particularly sexual abuse and assault. And so, I don't know, like that response or reaction from me is just not common anymore. Yeah. Like when I hear about things or when I see,
you're probably a little cynical too.
Yeah,
well,
it's like a cop seeing a
because you deal with it a lot.
Person.
Right.
Because there are just so many stories that I hear all the time that are really just awful. So I mean, there were whenever I see names or when I see the face of different people that formerly represented other things, I'm just kind of like, dang. But I don't feel that I have a surprise or a shock.
I'm kind of in Christina's boat, but I mean, I have to say, just because of the fact that I'm like, this man created like one of my favorite shows ever in life, I have to say it's Bill Cosby.
First of all,
I have to.
Debbie Allen was better at a different world.
Well, yes, she was.
I
said created, not like take it and send it off into
brought life to a different world. She would have died
because she went to Howard and stuff like that. So I'm just saying, in general.
Bill Cosby was kind of a shocker as well.
But
I wasn't like,
guys. But here's the thing.
It was, but it wasn't not as much for me as Morgan Freeman. Like
no, Hannibal Buress already attacked on it, but I'm not a big fan of Hannibal Buress. So I was kind of like, well, And then it started getting legs. And as it started getting legs, it was like the number grew. And like, please, you can't say 50 women, 50 plus women did not come.
Right, all those women coming forward. It was like, whoa, like for real. Like,
let's talk about. And I mean, to me, this gets back to conversations about rape culture. I was profoundly shocked with the number of women who waited until the accusations got to like 20 something before they were like, okay, yeah, I can see it now. Like.
that goes to a cultural thing.
The 19 chicks before this weren't
that wasn't proof. That wasn't proof enough.
But I'm gonna say this. I will say, like, as much as black women want to get mad at white women for like voting for Trump, black women need to look at themselves in the mirror the way that we cape for black men that don't deserve to be caped for. Look at how many black women cape for R. Kelly and still are. Yeah. Look at how many black women are caping for just really trash individuals. And it's like in victim blaming, it's what we are really programmed to be very protective of our black men when they don't even protect us.
So here's the thing: whether or not you talk about the two being reciprocated, I think that this shows a very tribal instinct.
Yeah, we close ranks.
Yeah, people close in on people who they feel should be defended. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, you know how Issa said she's rooting for everybody black. I want to make it very clear that I'm not. And like, I ain't cool.
Because that means we have to root for OJ, right?
Like, OJ did it.
We can't do that.
Oh, wow. Did you just say OJ did it?
Bill Cosby been trashed since at least 2005.
But how hard is that? Because there are so many times when we want to say we are rooting for everybody black, but we know that we can't.
I mean, I guess it would be ideological more so than anything. Like aspirational, I guess would be a better way to say it. But no, I mean, he's a douchebag classist / ageist.
And
you right. Okay, I see why you saying
black
that
people
now.
under
Okay,
the bus.
I see why you're saying that now. Because at first I was like, why would you have the same for Bill Cosby? And I'm like, okay, he did.
His whole respectability tour.
Okay.
Trash. Yeah. And if you really look at what's consistent between people who tout those respectability morals and ethics, and they do so very dogmatically, like those are the same people that
they running them up.
Yeah, that's real.
They refer to it as calling out sin in the
pulpit, right? In their
phone
at the very least.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're gonna take a little break, so we have usually about 20 minutes to take a break. But I'm gonna play some Drake today, so I just feel like playing.
No, I'm for it.
Why? I'm for it.
I'm not here for Aubrey. I'm sorry. I haven't been here for Aubrey since Take Care.
I'm a rider.
You go ahead and do that. You can be in your
I'm like,
feelings.
I like-
Get along really
Drake.
well for some reason.
Just please don't play in your feelings.
Is
I
it
can't
the
do
No,
it.
I'm not. No.
Is it the
Yeah, it's
Scorpio
all- yeah,
connection,
yeah.
maybe?
Maybe. I mean,
He's so emo.
he's cool, but it's like
That's how
I don't really consider him to be a rapper, but that's another conversation.
I feel like we would get along in real life.
This is where I
If
fall
my
out.
16-year-old female cousin were a rapper, she'd be Drake. So
That's facts.
She is Scorpio?
She's in her feelings.
No, but she stays in her feelings irrationally a lot.
Well,
Okay.
that's Scorpio males. But anyway,
I just
But,
want to know what man broke Drake's heart.
and let's not forget our underwriter for this month, Jonas
That's not Drake,
Hughes, and that is Hughes for Senate. If you look him up, he is in the 8th district. That is Blue Springs, Lee Summit area. All right, and we're gonna go into this break with Drake. Don't matter the name.
I bet it's one of the songs on the album I'm listening to.
We still high though.
No.
Well, last time on the
Sorry,
live,
y'all.
they could still.
Yeah, I make sure.
I'm sorry about the CP time. It wasn't my fault.
Oh, that's why people were saying, could you move over there? Because they can't really, they just see like the side of your.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they won't be
Profile.
on that side?
Yeah.
I can move.
Yeah, we was having some issues with that sandwich.
Anybody ever gone around with B?
Huh?
Anybody ever gone around with B?
He just said he was sick.
Oh, yeah, he said something about he had some type of infection or something. He said he was gonna send something in, but
Yeah.
it's not.
There's really not a whole lot going on sports. Training camp, we traded moves. The end.
You guys should hear it in your headphones now. Before that was the issue.
Yeah, I can hear it.
The sound before, like, you know, it's usually you can hear it in your ear. You couldn't hear it at first. That's why I was like, it's messing up my flow, man. So
I do cancel drinking my
So, speaking of my own equipment, I don't know what I'm gonna do with it now. I was like, well, I guess I could still use, no, 'cause I think I'm still use it if I take it with me.
28.
Damn. Who's this?
somebody was on the live feed talking about, is that JR? I was like,
Nope, no, it's not. Nope. Oh, no,
are you want me to go back and say no? No, that's not him.
That's what I would do. 'Cause I told you know the funny thing is I was at my computer working till at least 11:05 and I was like, oh crap, I should probably get up and get ready to go.
We got some fans in this
I need to shave. Not gonna make it. Can't do both at the same time.
What are the specs? I want to know. She's my auntie words.
Tight.
T Betty, is that what you gonna say?
I wasn't gonna go
You were born there.
I wasn't.
Yeah, you were born there.
I never said
You were slowly but
That
surely
was
traveling
never-
back in time with your lingo. Is
That
what
was
going
never in
on.
my vocabulary.
Really?
That word I never
What?
used.
What?
Betty. I never did.
You never use petty?
No.
I
Fetty, not
Oh,
Betty.
Fetty. I was like, Fetty.
No.
Fetty?
never said
I think I did.
I think that was past my generation.
Okay, wait. Of
Oh,
course.
for Betty.
Absolutely.
And y'all can't believe you did that.
Absolutely. It was a no-brainer, but do they get
He calls everybody.
funding if I sign in?
Well,
Okay.
they get we're a nonprofit, so yeah, they appreciate the
I mean,
signing.
so I shouldn't say I'm Bobby Brown. Okay.
Right.
We don't know
Bobby
like
Brown.
that.
Somebody just jumped in and talking about no audio because we're on break, clown. I was like,
Yeah, let's see.
yeah, when you take the breaks, it's like that's what sucks about the video. You can't hear nothing. So
Yeah, you do. Yes, you do. Well, are you gonna give us a heads up?
yeah, we got about 30 seconds.
I really should.
He does his little ad libs, you know, with Michael Jackson.
I'm gonna start coercing girls into taking therapy.
Oh, Mr. Chocolate. Really see him.
Is that what his name is in the phone? I was just like, you are way too old for nicknames. That's
Oh, I can
can't do that.
Well, y'all look all adorable and adults.
You said I could see his teeth.
I was just being. Okay, that's much better.
That one's cute.
Yeah.
Oh, my bag.
So y'all already going to the baseball game? Y'all calling official now?
Oh, yeah.
That's got the obligatory boo photo at the coffin?
Okay, yeah, all right.
We're back live.
Right, we're back.
You missed it.
All right, so right before we took our musical break, we started talking about people in the Me Too movement and just some people that we felt like, okay, when you found out, I was like, oh, you were shocked. So I know you said Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about Bill Cosby and his situation with the awful woman. And then I said Morgan Freeman. You didn't really, and then Christina was like, yeah.
It happens, guys.
He gives me creepy old uncle vibes.
Creepy old.
I mean, really old, emphasis on the old, but definitely it's not hard to conceive, you know?
Okay. So
there might have been somebody, but in a sexist society where we delegitimize the claims of sexual harassment about every time they come up, why would it be hard to conceive this? Why would it be hard to conceive that rich, powerful men love power so much so that they would take away a woman's right to it? So that's the essence of it.
Now, I didn't have particular people that shocked me. However, I did start feeling some anxiety, like with the frequency that the names were coming out, and then I started getting,
it was like back to back. It was a lot.
It was mad. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
Right, because I was just waiting for like literally any time that, like literally, like especially with morning news, I was like, please, George Stephanopoulos, please, no, no. I just
please not
please just stay away from it. Like, cause literally, like when the morning stuff, like with Matt Lauer and all of that, was just like, my goodness, it became one of those like you can't root for nobody. You can't root for nobody.
So there was a general anxiety that I started to feel.
Yeah, it got to that point. Yeah,
I think it was coming.
I didn't know.
I mean, it was just so it was like back to back to back to back. I was to the point I was like every single it's every day. It's two people or three people. Like whoa.
Fair. The thing that shocked me was we stayed clear until Russ, right? We didn't have a person of color being accused of being
not until Russell Simmons.
Yeah.
And even now, it's like the vast majority of them are not us. It's not to say that it's not as pervasive in our own communities, but
right.
I think a lot of those guys are happily married, believe it or not, or
well, also you have to keep in mind the power structure. Yeah. So a lot of gatekeepers
and a lot of people are still
white. So
yeah, that's true too, especially in the entertainment industry. I'm shocked that Drake's boyfriend has not come out about the time he was Me Too. But, that's just me.
Wait a minute, whoa. And he would say that we to play the Drake song.
Oh, my Lord.
You won't get an essence in time.
We're not.
We just don't want.
No, there's no fine for that. But
I'm
I'm just saying,
we just
like,
don't want that. We just really don't want that.
No, I'm just laughing at him.
I just turned into an iguana.
Yeah, I almost fell out. I did the meme where you like the chick sliding. Like, yeah, that was me. So, okay, so, and I know I sent this to you, Jay, but it's kind of like corny. It's kind of one of those things like, what are you going to do as a person? I guess if we say, what are we all going to do to continue to inform and help society understand what consent is and just the boundaries and understand, especially like us as women, just educating each other. And then, of course, you as, male kind of person.
For me, I think one of the strongest weapons you have in these particular fights are the power of dialogue. You need to have very true, very honest, very informed conversations that come from a place of genuine knowledge that you have. Otherwise, because we've come into this culture where people say things casually like we're all entitled to our opinions when your opinions are entirely baseless. So
with no facts.
Like as much as you want to talk about the 2 to 8% of false rape accusations that happen every year, I think it's much more important that we talk about the 97% of the women who don't report it at all.
Yeah.
So like not getting them sidetracked, having that that tenacity to just kind of confront an issue when somebody's just out here casually and passing trafficking BS. I need like a wall of safe words.
I can see how that would be helpful.
Yeah.
I feel like as a, using all my avenues, as a woman, a mom, a professional.
A mom to a son.
Yeah, so I specifically have already been talking to my child about relationships and how he interacts with people, not just girls, but all people. Like
That's
what's
good.
appropriate in terms of boundaries. I have been talking to him about being the boss and being in charge of his own body since he was very young, and most of that was really just to prepare him for
A world in which he doesn't have autonomy over it entirely.
well, that, and then also, there are in the arena of sexual assault and child abuse and things like that. We used to be told, like our generation used to be told, that it was a stranger danger thing.
Yeah.
That
Right.
we needed to really be
No,
leery of
you need to be
people.
leery of your uncle.
Yeah.
Well,
because-
yeah, or
well,
your auntie,
you know,
or
the
your
people
cousin.
the people with close access to you.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
For me, it's always been really important that I talk to him and even other kids that I know and that I have access to about the importance of them owning their bodies and being in charge of their bodies and not feeling pressured to be affectionate even with people. Like, I'm not one of those moms that's like, oh, give so-and-so a hug,
No.
give auntie so-and-so a
No.
kiss or any of that. So, starting really young with that, empowering him to know the boundaries, learning boundaries of himself, but then also, explaining to him that other people have ownership of their own bodies and the importance of respecting those boundaries and respecting what other people want and don't want, and what's too much and what, listening to other people and giving them the language to discuss it. And then I, have access to lots of children. I used to be a teacher and now I'm a therapist. So
You're
it's important to-
definitely doing your part.
yeah, so it's important to spread that knowledge because really the more equipped that younger people are,
yeah.
I feel like that is our
Earlier
best
they
hope
can get equipped.
Right.
to eradicate this type of culture and the way that we have been socialized to think about violating other people's boundaries. So if we teach younger people, I think that's what's most helpful. And then also confronting people when we're around people that say things that are not okay,
right.
like you
That
said,
are
you said
right.
Say
that.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's mainly what I try to do.
galvanize.
That's what I
like,
try to do. Like the informing, and even like setting up a show like this, educating. I think that's where it's gonna start. Is having those conversations.
I think as men, we really can go a great deal by legitimizing a woman's story.
Okay.
I think a lot of times you hear a lot of men get overly defensive and jump to, well, we got to wait until all the facts come out. I have yet in my 34 years of life to see somebody actually wait until the facts come out and critique them the way that they were protecting them earlier. So, I mean, I think it's a safe assumption that nobody's having those conversations and they need to. And meanwhile, while we're having those conversations, there are women who are out here telling you their experience that you're trivializing in a way
like it's a
that
joke. Yeah.
you just may not be considering to protect your favorite celebrity because, him and Theo had a couple special scenes in 1986. I don't know.
Well, I think it's more so that people put people on the pedestal, and it's kind of like now you're seeing, oh, these people are actual just human beings. So
They're just as flawed as anybody else.
They're
I
just-
think for myself personally, what I
More
find
so.
myself doing
Right.
a lot more often is there are a lot of men that love the anatomy of women, but they don't like women.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
No,
They don't
seriously.
like women.
Oh no.
So really what it comes down to is what we have to ask ourselves, like, because I think that, all right, so there was a very
What she's
big,
referring to misogyny. Yeah.
right, and that's basically what it comes down to. So for me, I always ask friends of mine that I consider to be very well-evolved human beings, what are you doing when you see that friend in your circle say something, do something that's completely out of pocket?
Mm-hmm.
Do you check that? Because
That's right.
as a woman, I could say it till I'm blue in the face. It's not going to matter. I'm not in a position where I'm going to be gaslighted. You, on the other hand, can clearly say, look, bro, you're doing too much. Pull that dude by the coattails
Right.
and say, let's have a conversation about that.
That's
And
right.
I mean, that really annoys me.
Fairly honest, that doesn't happen as much as people would like to believe it does. happens. Like,
I don't think it does. I say I would like to have that happen
It's
more.
like I know roughly who my 3 problematic friends are.
Mhm. No, that's fair.
I'm
That's
just kidding.
fair. I think every man has a circle of friends where they got that 1 or 3 friends that are trash,
Look,
and they know it.
patriarchy.
Yeah, he knows.
Patriarchy is an age-old institution. It is not going to go away just because we've decided we wanted the pendulum to swing in the last 20 or 30 years.
Right.
It's going to
It's
take
gonna
a lot
take
of time.
These are people who have been conditioned by 35 years of traditionalism and conservatism, and so does that change who they are in some aspects of being a friend to me? No. Does this afford me the opportunity to challenge them occasionally? Yes. Do I get in day-to-day conversations or arguments with them? No, because 9 times out of 10, like, they've identified me as that feminist friend, as that womanist friend. So they definitely avoid. It's like your church friend. You don't cuss around your church friend. You just kind of avoid those spaces. I mean, I do.
I do.
You know, it's that same energy. You know what I'm saying? I think one of the most interesting things is that, oh crap, I can't even share this meme because it's so steeped in curse in.
You can direct us.
Okay, so let me try.
Give a
this
description. You can give a description.
So there's a girl on Twitter, and she's saying, and I quote, "If you ever tried to stick your finger in a straight man's southern regions,
I've seen that one.
You would know right away that he understands the concept of consent."
Yeah,
and I was like, it's amazing how so many people can understand concepts when they are applicable to them, but not when they're making other people to them people. So
yeah, that's real. Yeah, I've seen that one. So.
I laughed so hard.
I've seen it.
But
it's almost like me and JR be like, we both be trolling kind of.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure I left a troll comment. Oh man.
I saw it. I don't remember where I saw that, but it was like somebody shared it. But it wasn't on Twitter because I don't get Twitter on there that much. But yeah.
I laughed so hard.
That's fair.
Like, no, that's real.
That's
all of us don't need that
Those
forced
are hard
lesson
facts.
of empathy, but yeah, we get it.
That's more than fair.
Well, other segments for the show. Like this show, the conversation just took up most of the show. Anything going on in sports, Angie?
Well, Chiefs fans, we're here. It is that time. There's no Olympics. There's nothing to hold us with baseball because the Royals. The Royals did trade Mike Moustakas, otherwise known as Moose, to the Brewers. He got traded last night. That is going to be the Blue Purge. Royals fans, prepare yourselves. We are terrible, to be quite frank. So this is about to be a youth movement. So hopefully it won't take us another 30 years to win another World Series, but it might take 40. I don't know.
Yeah, they traded off most of the major players.
Yes, they have.
Something about not standing behind people that don't deserve it.
Dang. Let her do a sports thing, man.
Let me cook anyway. And we'll see. Let's see. Chiefs training camp did start this week in St. Joseph, Missouri, at Missouri Western. Yeah. And so the big question in everybody's minds is, what is Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs' first-round draft pick, going to do? At the helm, he's been given the keys to the car. Will he drive it off the cliff? We do not know. We do not know. But that's all I got for you in sports. It's a slow week.
All right. Christina, well, you pretty much, you done took up the whole.
Well, yeah.
This is basically your
lane. Like, when you spoke.
Yeah, I didn't prepare, a whole little side segment because I just was prepared to just mix all in with y'all.
Yeah, the self-care was pretty much, you were jumping in the whole convo, yeah.
I can add a few little nuggets in terms of how this affects people, what we've been talking about, the blurriness, the seemingly blurry lines of consent, which really aren't blurry. But when people find themselves, trying to find their way in a situation where it seems that the lines have become blurry, I think it's really important from a mental health perspective. I think it's really important for people to not isolate themselves. I thought I gave a lot of thought to this when you said that this is what we were going to be talking about. You know, sometimes people, like we were talking a little bit earlier about how people can be triggered in moments. Maybe they thought they were down. They got to a place in the middle where it was like, "Man, this is actually uncomfortable. I'm changing my mind here." There's a lot that could be happening in the psyche of people. And one of the worst things that can happen in the aftermath is isolation. So many times what can happen is, you know, when people are traumatized by a situation, especially around sex, because we're in such a vulnerable state when we're connecting with somebody physically like that, and things can be triggered or it can just get really weird. And the tendency is to isolate because of shame, like feelings of shame and embarrassment. But that's really one of the worst things that a person can do for themselves and for their emotional and mental health, is to isolate. And so if this is resonating with anybody, and you know, have ever found yourself in a place, or you do find yourself in a place, identify somebody that you feel safe with, even if it's just one person that you feel safe with,
Touching it.
that you can, you know, sit with them and ask to be heard and just talk through your experience. It may be that the onus was on you to be really clear, and maybe you feel some shame and embarrassment around that, and it's okay to talk that out with somebody. It's okay if you later find out that, you know, you were the victim of something, or maybe you gave off some mixed signals and need to then go back and make some repair with someone. One thing that I always say to clients, to people, is that repair is always possible. Like it's always possible to repair. Like, no, you can't go back in time and change a situation, or
repair the damage,
but you can repair. Like, repair is always possible. So it may just take some hard work to repair, and that's okay. We can all do hard things. So if you find somebody that you feel safe with, that you can talk to and maybe just process through your experience and what happened, try not to isolate.
That's great. Okay, well, wrapping up the show, Angie, you want to give out your information, or you just want to take a vote? Like, sometimes you want to
He said, do I want to give out my information?
No, you know, we always do. Hey, if people want to get in contact with, maybe somebody will hit you up on some sports talk. Who knows?
Stay at my DMs. But you can find me on Instagram at Ms. with a Z _ Angela ANGELA _ROUX. That's where I mainly be. Or you can also find me on Facebook on my artist page, Ms. Angela Wu, and MZANGELA ROUX. I'm not on Twitter, but again, if it's all for the business,
yeah, she's saying
stay in my DMs.
Don't come with no mess.
But if it ain't about business, stay at my DMs. I'm good.
So, yeah.
No, no, don't hit me on
He
social
said,
media at all.
don't hit him
I don't
up.
have time for your energy.
You don't need that negative energy. So, I'm just playing.
So busy.
I am the person.
No,
I
we're
can only
joking.
put out so much at a time.
Listen, I'm not joking.
If you guys have comments for JR, contact me.
You want to take those slings and arrows?
I'm strong. I'll take.
I don't even take this way.
She gully out here. So yeah,
Right.
I'm at where I be. I'm at where I
I
be.
action the way I used to.
I don't even
That's
care,
all I
man.
can
I don't
say.
even care. If you want to find me I'm usually on IG. That's the best way to find me. That's Serenity, then with 2 underscores and the word speak. And of course, on Pros and Verbs, you can find me there also. You can find all of us there. If you want to hit us up for comments, that's PROSEANDS, Verbs, Pros and Verbs all together. And follow us. We're definitely going to try to have some conversations like this again. This is definitely dialogue that needs to be had. And I'm going to end, I usually start with a quote, but I'm going to end this time with a quote. This is by Coco Chanel. Beauty begins the moment you decide to be yourself. So make sure you are being yourself, everybody. And I am. Right. Well, no.
No, that was a good quote though.
Thanks for tuning in. And of course, follow us on our SoundCloud as well. You can hear the audio. I usually try to post that up by like Monday or Tuesday. Then we have replays that are on Thursdays with KOJH. That's Kansas City's oldest jazz house. It's a radio station on 18th and Vine. So you can catch us there also. I'm Serenity, reminding you to spit your peace.
For the longest time, I'm having a lock. My lock is tough. No, I'm
I have
about
some
to cut it.
I don't know if you know.
Oh, okay, but you're not trying to record it, are you?
Yeah, yeah.
Come on, Mama, please.
It's not recording.
Oh, this. Oh, okay.
You sure you get some?
Oh, my God. It's like, I didn't want to walk around with an awkward lock.
Okay, it's barely.
Let me freak it. However, it
Give
is
us
a
some more
little.
I
volume.
know.
Okay.
Yeah, I already know about it. I was like, it's,
You
yeah.
hear it?
It's on its last leg.
There it is. It looks now. Was it playing low?
So,
I turned it up.
Oh. Who's talking about that
Okay.
lady?
how cool was that though? I
Mhm.
wasn't expecting that
Oh,
from that conversation.
so really,
It was very fruitful.
because weirdly enough, let me tell you this. That one,
Uh-huh.
JR, my friend,
Yes.
tried to hook me up with